The written report for Make a Presentation gives you the opportunity to choose one of two topics. Now you can either look at body language or listening skills. In both instances, it is a report that needs to be prepared for the ABC sales company. One is based on body language. There is a little bit of a scenario that's presented here, and the whole idea of this is trying to find out what are the key components of good body language. If you're looking at body language, understanding body language, how body language is essential for the successful selling process, and the recommendations to be considered by the organisation on body language. The other option that you have in terms of your your report is based on listening skills. Once again, it actually is looking at the ABC sales company. Please be aware this is a fictitious company, so please don't try and look up any information on the ABC company. We've just chosen and randomly selected a name. But in this instance, you do need to think about what are the components for good listening skills, how good listening skills can improve sales, and the recommendations that you make from your report for the ABC company to consider. Now, in terms of how the report needs to be put together, there's a couple of things you need to be mindful of. First of all, the word count is 1,500 words. Now, this does not include the cover page, the table of contents, or the bibliography. It's the actual words that you're actually writing. So that's one thing you need to be mindful of, because I have received inquiries about that. In terms of how the information will be presented, you do need a cover page which has the name, the title, the name of the person receiving the report, your name, the date, and the word count. You do need a table of contents. Now, please use a numbering system to actually so that we could actually see how, where we need to go with this this report. Please be mindful of the fact that you can actually use the table. There is a format in Word that you can use that can automatically create a table of contents for you. I don't have a problem with that, but it does need to be used, and it needs to be presented in the right context. The next thing that appears in your report is the executive summary. Please note this is the last section that needs to be completed, because in your executive summary, as I've given you with the notes, it's a summary of the whole report. Just be mindful of the fact that if you read an executive summary, it's like you have a full understanding of the total report. It just highlights the main points from each section. So you do need to have a brief introduction. You do need to have your main findings and key results. You do need your key recommendations. You do need to have it in bullet points. That's what I do recommend that you do with the executive summary. It is the last thing that you do, as I mentioned before. The next section is the introduction. And this is explaining what the purpose and scope of the report is. What is the report about? Why should the reader even look at it? And the methodology that's used to compile the report. That's something that's in the introduction. I normally suggest to people, when you're writing a report, start off with the bits of information that you do know. So if you are looking at something like listening skills, start off with the main points of what listening skills is about. So, you might be looking at the types of listening skills, and then build it on there. So in effect, we're starting with the analysis. The introduction can come later, because I find a lot of people, and I know I'm like this, if you start with the introduction, you can sometimes get bogged down because you don't know what you really want to write. But once you start getting the information and building it together, you can then possibly write the introduction a little bit later. But the analysis and discussion, if you can look at it in this context, one part of it is actually coming up with the key points that are relevant to the topic. So that's the analysis, and the discussion, how it actually affects the organisation. So when you talk about the different types of listening, if there is just say active listening, what is active listening? And describe it. And then think about how it can actually assist in the ABC company, with their business. So that's the analysis and discussion section. Your conclusion is a summary of the information that you've presented, in the introduction and the analysis. Your recommendations is setting out what needs to be done. So no new ideas are put in this section, but what actually happens is you come up, and I do recommend you come up with 3 recommendations, 3 things that an organisation can do. One that they can do immediately, one that can be done in the short term, and maybe one that they may need to consider in the long term. If you look at it in that context, it just makes it easier, for you to try and map out what needs to be done. If you can only come up with 2 recommendations, that's fine too. Now the premise of this assignment is the fact that you do need to do research. So you do need to include 3 textbooks that you've actually used to find the information, and at least 3 journal articles. And I have actually given you all access to the online databases. This is where you do need to get the information from. Please be wary about Googling and finding bits of information from Google unless you use Google Scholar. It's important that you do actually use some scholarly articles so that it actually can add depth. We do not recommend that you use Wikipedia for this report. We would like to see that you do actually look at other sources. If you're not sure which textbooks, there is a list of resources in your workbook, so there is a starting point, and you can start off with Judith Dwyer. You can go to your local library. They've got lots of textbooks there on communication that should actually help you as well. Please be aware that this is a formal report, so you do need to have it bound and with a plastic cover and maybe a cardboard back. So it doesn't need to be bound in a business format. So just be mindful of that. Please do not put them in plastic sleeves. It is difficult to actually to mark. So if you can just do that as well. Please be sure that you also have your covering your cover sheet, which you need to sign to say that the information that you've provided is your own work. If there are any questions or queries on anything I've spoken about, by all means, please send me an email and I'll try and sort it out for you.